Welcome to the Art of Pilates. I'm Louise Taube, principal trainer. I am a studio owner and a Pilates teacher, and I train teachers as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can visit my website for teachers at taubepilates.com. If you're wanting to check out my studio, it's louisetaubepilates.com. And if there's a topic on the podcast that you'd love to hear about, please let me know. Welcome to season 2 of the Art of Pilates. I'm Louise Taube, your host, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be starting this podcast again. So I thought I'd start off talking a little bit about myself and some of my offerings. So the first question I have for myself is what drew me to Pilates and how did my journey unfold? Well, I had a previous career as a professional dancer. So I studied dance at Queensland University of Technology, and then I moved to Melbourne to study at the VCA in their postgrad in choreography course. So I worked as a freelance dancer in Melbourne. I worked with a couple of freelance dance companies like Company in Space, Not Yet It's Difficult. I got funding for some of my own projects, which was absolutely thrilling for me. During my dance career, a girlfriend of mine said, "Oh, you've got to do Pilates. It's great for injury prevention. There's a reformer at one of the studios down the road." And I just absolutely loved it. So I did a couple of reformer sessions with the teacher there, Kerry, who now has the Studio Infinity Pilates just down the road from me. And I really loved how it made me feel so strong. And the corrections were very specific, and I felt like my posture was improving. And when I was doing Pilates, I didn't get any injuries from the work that I was doing with the various dance companies, which included things like dancing on concrete, throwing yourself against a brick wall, that type of stuff. So, yeah. How I started teaching Pilates was one of my friends, who was also a dancer, said, "Can you please cover a Pilates class for me? I'm going to be overseas on tour in Europe and I need someone to cover this class for me. You'll love it and you'll get so toned." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to teach Pilates. I taught dance classes, but I hadn't actually taught any Pilates classes." And I thought, all right, I'll give it a go. So basically, I had a book that I purchased and I was reading out the exercises from the book while I was teaching it to the class. And I actually really loved it. It was kind of like a dance performance at the same time as people in the class, and I could see what they need, if they needed shoulder stretching. And I became more confident within that. At the same time, I was still dancing, but my dance career was kind of starting to wane away. And I actually really preferred the energy that I got from teaching a Pilates class as opposed to a performance. So the performance would always be exhilarating, but there were always those unpaid rehearsals, the injuries that you would get that were never covered by work cover. So to actually be doing something that was really nourishing my body and giving back to myself rather than always giving out to an audience, I really loved it. And I started teaching matwork Pilates as well as teaching dance classes at a number of different dance studios in Melbourne. And then from doing that, there was a reformer course that was on. I got a phone call from a gym owner in Armidale, and I was working then at recreation health clubs, and they were bringing someone over from Canada to teach a reformer Stott Pilates class. And this woman, Joanne Russell, was starting to have the very first group reformer class in Australia, and she needed Pilates instructors. So I was very lucky to get that call. The instructor from Canada, Sally Ballinger, came over and was teaching the course. So the course was intense. It was every day for 2 weeks, and it was about 6 hours a day, every day, doing Pilates, changing the springs, learning the repertoire, practice teaching. And it was absolutely fantastic. I really loved it, and I felt so strong. And at this stage, I'd sustained a knee injury from one of the dance projects that I was doing. And it actually helped my knee to get better. I was amazed. I just felt so strong and so capable. And I have to say, that was probably the strongest time I've ever been in my entire life, was from doing that Stott Pilates course and then teaching group reformer after that course. And I absolutely loved it. Gradually, other gyms started to offer group Pilates. I started working in Pilates studios, teaching reformer. And then I thought, I better get my studio certification. So then I did my Polestar Pilates studio certificate, which I really loved. And because I was already teaching, I could do a lot of my practice teaching hours actually in-house at the different studios that I was working at. So it was a great way to actually get all of my hours completed while being paid at the same time. And now I think a lot of people don't have that luxury. So it was really good for me to start with that reformer course and then to progress onto a studio course. And because I was actually teaching clients in a studio at the time, I could ask my teachers anything that I needed to know about any of the pathologies that I had, any of the injuries or specific issues that clients came into the studio. So I felt like it was a really great learning process for me. And I really loved doing that course. I think it was about a year-long course plus completing all the hours within that course. Then from there, I had some funding to travel to New York to study at the New York Film Academy. I'd always loved film and photography. I'd studied photography in high school. I studied video production techniques when I was at university. So I had this passion for capturing the moving body with film and video. While I was in New York, mobile phones had been invented, and I got an overseas phone call from Australia while I was in New York. And I was like, who could be calling me from Australia, a number who I didn't know, all the way over to New York? And it was Pilates calling. It was a health club looking for a Pilates instructor to start teaching classes at their gym. And it wasn't really a sign, but it's kind of like I never went in looking for Pilates. Pilates came looking for me. And that kind of really thrills me about the whole thing with Pilates, with my Pilates journey specifically, because I never ever sought out to become a Pilates teacher, but it's just kind of like what I started to do. And I started to tell people that I was a Pilates instructor rather than a dancer because it seemed to be a better career in a way. I opened up a home studio in my apartment in St Kilda. So after I completed my Polestar Pilates course, I had a back injury, which was really scary for me. It was so painful. I couldn't get out of bed. I was in so much pain, really struggled to get into the gyms and the health clubs in the city or anywhere to teach my Pilates classes. And I was worried I wouldn't have any income. At the same time, with the back injury, there was vacant possession. They were selling the building that I was in. This was my home. This was my Pilates studio, which was offering me some income. And I faced the prospect of having to move and having a back injury and not being able to teach any of the classes that I'd previously taught that took me away from home. And in fact, one of the businesses that I worked at, they sold their business and I didn't want to work for the new company that had purchased their business. So I found myself in a bit of a tricky position. I was so anxious. It was really a horrible time. I was in so much pain. I couldn't make my bed. I couldn't do grocery shopping. I couldn't clean the apartment. So my mom actually came from Brisbane and she helped me pack my apartment up. My little sister helped me pack my apartment up and they helped me move. I was so grateful. Anyway, once I moved to my new place, which was a mansion apartment in St Kilda East, it was beautiful. It had high ornate ceilings and spacious rooms, arched windows which let in lots of natural light, which was just like the dream space for a Pilates studio. When I did my Pilates training with Polestar, I remember learning all of the supine exercises, staring up at those horrible dichroic lights, which just kind of burned into the back of your retina, and they weren't relaxing at all. So I always dreamed about having a Pilates studio which had ornate ceilings and beautiful light fixtures so that when you were looking up, it was actually quite beautiful and not like you're in a dental surgery about to have your teeth pulled out. So I found my dream place. I went to see a GP and I was explaining that I had terrible pain. I couldn't sit down because it caused excruciating pain. The pain subsided when I lay flat. I was taking a lot of painkillers, and he gave me a physical examination. And during that physical examination, he pulled my pants down and sexually assaulted me. Pilates saved my life. So this was really horrible. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I came home, I had a shower. I was still in pain, but he also gave referral to get a scan on my back. So within that scan, they found a 5 by 7 centimeter cyst in my sacrum, and it had remodeled my sacrum with some edges of my sacrum only being a millimeter thick. I hope I never fall on my sacrum because I just don't want to crack a bone. So I just thought I was going to die. I just thought, I found this dream place. I now have a back injury. I now have like a massive cyst in my spine. I'm going to end up being crippled. It was absolutely terrifying and it made my pain worse. And the sexual assault compounded on my mental health. Pain and being sexually assaulted by someone you trust with your body and your physical health was really horrific to me. It changed my life. I did not trust any physical practitioners, and I made a pact to myself that I would never make anyone feel the way I felt during that time. And just not having trust of people in the medical field, that just dissipated. And I was really at a loss for what to do with all of the pain that I was suffering. So every 6 months, I'd go in for another scan to see if the cyst had grown. The cyst didn't grow. And it was found that it had been there since I was in utero. So my entire life, it's always been there. When they did further scans, more detailed scans, they found a tiny disc bulge between L5 and S1. And that was what was giving me pain. But because of everything else, like the size of the cyst and the sexual assault, I was crippled mentally and physically by the pain and what had happened to me. It was a horrific time, and I would not wish that on anyone. So I was still working at my home studio. I found the only way I could cope was to teach my clients and then go back to my bed and lie down to take the pain off my back. I would spend days crying and crying. I was in so much pain and I was so hurt by how I had been treated by the medical profession. I became very, very dark and very depressed. And the only thing that really got me out of bed was to actually see my clients and teach my clients. And I feel like they actually saved my life. And also through the injury, I really understood what pain actually was all about. And if someone came to me with something that was giving them pain, I would try my best to find the right moves and the safest way to move their body to help them out of pain. So, in a way, Pilates really did force me to return to life. It was my clients who returned me to life, who got me out of bed, who got me moving, who believed in me, who turned up and made me teach them how to move. And then gradually and slowly, I got better and better over a very long period of time. So moving forward, when I think of how my Pilates practice has evolved, when I was working in gyms and health clubs, it was very athletic, very dancerly. I would try and make all the movements flow. I would use music and have a rhythm to the class. So I wanted to create a feeling or an experience of a movement class, even though it could be on the reformer, it could be on the mat. And some of it was quite athletic because I was working in gyms and health clubs at the same time. There were more spaces opening up with group reformer and group mat work as well. So my practice has evolved from being quite athletic to more therapeutic. So I find my clients now perhaps need more therapeutic care than athleticism. Although we can still do a lot of the athletic moves, it takes a longer, slower warm up to reach into or to be able to master those athletic moves during a session. So I guess with the evolution of my teaching, I've started to really focus more on balance. So in terms of proprioception, where the body is in space, I love using the Wonder Chair for balancing exercises. Or if I'm teaching a Zoom class, just standing in tandem stance, slow blinking, standing on one leg, using small props to really challenge the balance and proprioception. I now use more functional exercises that help to build bone. So things like scooter on the reformer, using a kettlebell, or standing side splits using hand weights on the reformer. So I really want to focus on strength and functional strength as I am aging. I work on posture because I can see what poor posture can do to someone's quality of life, even their breathing changes as their posture starts to collapse. And younger people are starting to come forward with that rounded posture. So, which creates more anxiety in the body if you're not giving your lungs enough space to expand. So, using breath and improving posture is really important in my practice, and it can really regulate the nervous system and calm the body down. A quick word from our sponsor, Taube Pilates. If you're a Pilates teacher wanting to confidently support your perimenopause and menopausal clients, please join me for my Mastering Perimenopause and Menopause with Pilates course. This evidence-based informed course gives you all the tools you need to work with perimenopause and menopause women. So we address bone health, pelvic floor function, strength, balance, and the many changes that women go through at this time in their life. As a listener to Art of Pilates, you can get a discount of 25% off with discount code HOTFLUSH25. So visit torpilates.com to see this course. I've recently got a standometer. So improving posture with my standometer is a fantastic tool. So it's basically a tool that measures your height and it's very precise. So we can measure down to the millimeter of what height you are. I can see if people are losing height. If they're losing a lot of height, say 7 centimeters, maybe they have osteoporosis and they might have fractured a vertebra. So if that's the case, if they've lost that much height, I always suggest to get a DEXA scan to find out if they have got osteoporosis. I really love my standometer. It's been the best thing since sliced bread for me. It makes it so much more fun and easy to teach postural corrections because you can say to people when they're doing their standing leg press on the Wonder Chair, imagine that you're trying to grow taller on the standometer. It's like a speedometer, but it's for standometer. During COVID, I started to teach more online classes, so mat work classes, and I found that doing more upright moves are much better for the body in terms of building muscle mass and bone density. So lying flat on the floor can be quite relaxing, but it doesn't do much in terms of building bone density, improving balance, and posture. Although we can work some of the postural muscles in prone work. So now I do more standing work in a mat work class than lying flat. So I've been inspired to create a number of courses over the years. I've got my certificate 4 in training and assessment. So I'm recognized with the Pilates Association of Australasia as a teacher trainer, which is a real thrill for me to be recognized at that level. So I can give back to Pilates, which really saved my life on so many different levels. So I was inspired to develop the menopause course because I'm going through menopause myself, and my sister's going through menopause, and a lot of my clients are going through menopause. So it's kind of like a key topic at the moment. And really, there's so much we can do to help with a lot of the symptoms of menopause through Pilates. So when I look at my clients, family, and friends who are going through menopause, you seem to get more injuries. I tore my Achilles tendon, and I'm sure it was because of menopause. So the tendons and the joints, ligaments, everything changes during menopause. So things become less stable, muscles atrophy, bones weaken. So doing everything you can to support all the body systems is so essential. You get weight redistribution. So you get the menopausal belly, which is really unsettling as a Pilates instructor who's always had a fairly flat tummy. The joint pain. I went to see my doctor several times saying, "Oh, my hip's so sore. I think I need a hip replacement. Oh, my hip's so sore. My neck's so sore. My knees are so sore." But really, it's just the lack of estrogen and the changes to the body that is causing all of this joint pain. And it's common. It's happening in all females around me between the ages of 40 and 60. And after 60, it doesn't go away. So I've been reading this interesting article, let me find it, about the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. Vonda J. Wright and a few other people have written that article. And it's really interesting because they say 51% of humans are born with ovaries, and more than 70% will experience musculoskeletal symptoms. And 25% will be disabled by them through the transition from perimenopause to menopause. And that doesn't surprise me. A lot of my clients and even family have stopped working during that perimenopause phase. They've just stopped due to mental, physical, emotional stresses where things had just changed so dramatically that they needed to get out. And it seems really unfair because there's a massive loss of superannuation when you retire early. So I'm talking women in their 50s are finishing up work. And the fact that 25% will be disabled by the transition is absolutely terrifying. So it also says this often unrecognized collective of musculoskeletal symptoms, largely influenced by estrogen flux, includes arthralgia, loss of muscle mass, loss of bone density, and progression of osteoarthritis, among others. And in isolation, it can be difficult for clinicians and patients to adequately appreciate the substantial role of decreasing estrogen, appreciate the onset of related symptoms, and actively treat to mitigate future detrimental processes. Brain fog is one. I just hope it doesn't lead to dementia. So in this review, we introduce a new term, the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, to describe the collective musculoskeletal signs and symptoms associated with the loss of estrogen. Given the significant effects of these processes on quality of life and the associated personal and financial costs, it is important for clinicians and the women they care for to be aware of this terminology and the constellation of musculoskeletal processes for which proper risk assessment and prophylactic management are consequence. I remember going to several different GPs complaining of joint pain, complaining of painful sex, complaining of, what else did I have? Exhaustion. I was exhausted all of the time, and I really was just not given any help. One place sent me to get a scan for my hip. Oh, there's nothing wrong with your hip. It must all be in your head. I went to another place for a pelvic ultrasound, which I found really confronting considering my history of being sexually assaulted. So, where you have a scan of the pelvis with with a large wand device through the vagina. So that was a really horrific experience for me. I didn't enjoy that at all. But they found that there was nothing wrong with me. And so I just had to continue having painful sex. I was not given anything. And it almost feels like the medical world was just saying this was all in your head. But really, I was in pain. I was living through pain. And it was taking a toll on my mind and my emotions. And with that cycle of pain, you start to feel more pain. So that's when I started to really delve into menopause. What I love about Pilates is you can help the menopausal body in the studio on all of the Pilates studio equipment on the reformer. You can help the menopausal body with specific Pilates mat work exercises, standing exercises to build bone, weight bearing exercises to build muscle. So, Pilates, I believe, can cater perfectly to the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. And with how I had been treated by the now medical profession, I felt betrayed again. And I never wanted to have a client come through my door and felt that they weren't listened to or understood, or that their pain was just all in their head. One of the tests that I did get was actually what was it? It was a heart scan. Oh, that's right. I got an ECG to find out how my heart was going because I was having palpitations and related to menopausal, where you feel like your heart is racing. Anyway, the results came back and I had a fucked, like fucked, but fucked. So I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Fucked. What a fucked is it's a heart attack. I was in shock. I was like, I don't remember having a heart attack. I know I've been having heart palpitations, but that's just like those night sweats. It's all part of the regime, the hot flushes. So, and then what was there to do about it? Well, nothing. And then I got an Apple Watch, only because I'd heard in social media that the Apple Watch will notify you if you're having a heart attack, although the Apple Watch information says it won't notify you if you have a heart attack. But I do test my heart rate often, and it's always sinus, which means it's healthy. I haven't had a heart attack, or my heart rate is pumping at a regular rate. But what I love about the Apple Watch is, and I'm not promoting Apple Watches, any of those smart watches will do this. They do remind you to stand up, which really helps my back if I'm sitting down too long at the computer. And they also remind you to exercise. So I know anyone who's wearing an Apple Watch, they're going to be motivated to move, that's for sure. And I love it when you see the rings go around. They go, oh, you've done all your standing for today. Oh, you've done all your move for today. You've hit your move goal. You've hit your stand goal. You've hit your exercise goal. So that's actually quite motivating. And I would highly recommend getting a smartwatch. And I think that actually it's made me more motivated to stay even more active again, having this little tiny piece of technology that keeps you moving and rewards you with a little ring of fire. So I did want to talk a little bit more about my Mastering Menopause with Pilates course because it's such a great opportunity to learn new information, to get inspired, and to increase your client base. Because I feel like, especially in Pilates studios, a lot more of the menopausal women are coming to a studio environment, and the younger people are going to the group reformer classes. But group reformer is a great way to get introduced to Pilates. I mean, that's kind of how I started earning my bread and butter, was through group reformer before I transitioned into studio, which is what I really love now. You'll have a lot of fun doing the course as well. So the Mastering Perimenopause and Menopause with Pilates course will keep you up to date with the latest research. Like the article I quoted from before was March 2024. And this article is fantastic, actually. It goes on talking about the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, inflammation. The body becomes more inflamed as estrogen is an inflammatory regulator that plays a role in the prevention of generalized arthralgia and the subjective experience of joint pain. So our bodies become more inflamed during menopause. Sarcopenia, which is the age-related loss of lean muscle mass, characterized by the atrophy of fast muscle fibers, loss of type 2 fibers, decrease in the number of motor units, and the increased intramuscular adipose tissue. So all our muscle just turns to fat. Also, it talks about bone density. So osteoporosis is a serious problem with 200 million postmenopausal women affected worldwide. It is underdiagnosed, preventable, and treatable. So yeah, you need to do this course. Cartilage damage and osteoarthritis. Cartilage is composed of a dense extracellular matrix and highly specialized chondrocyte cells that are partly regulated by estrogen. So when estrogen drops, it can affect the cartilage and lead to osteoarthritis. So there's so much that you'll learn within the Mastering Perimenopause and Menopause with Pilates. You'll also gain 8 CECs with the Pilates Association of Australasia and 11 professional development points. Did I get that around the right way? 11 professional development points with Oz Active. When I think about what inspires me most as a Pilates teacher, my clients inspire me. One of my clients, she runs marathons. She's in her 70s. She has rheumatoid arthritis, but she shows up. I know she's in a lot of pain, but she keeps moving to keep that pain at bay. Other of my clients have had debilitating spinal injuries with spinal surgery, and they come out on top, living life to the full, traveling, enjoying the love of their family. We've only got one body to live in, and I feel like we're so blessed to keep that body moving and enjoying that body, enjoying moving the body. And even my clients who are in their 80s, turning up to Pilates, improving their posture, becoming stronger, even though I know they must have joint pain, they show up and they work and they build their body to help them carry through the next 10, 20, or 30 years. So if you want to find me, I'm at Taube Pilates on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm at Taube Pilates. On YouTube, you can find me at Louise Taube. You can email me at louise@taubepilates.com. My website is taubepilates.com, and my studio website is louisetaubepilates.com. So Pilates is the best career I could have ever imagined to have had. I never ever fitted into a normal 9 to 5. And after retiring from dance at the old age of 30, I was lucky that Pilates found me. I didn't have any plans of what I was going to do after my dance career finished, and I just thought I was going to keep dancing till I was dead. So presenting Pilates courses, whether live online or face-to-face, lights me up. I love hearing the personal journeys of the participants in all of my courses, and I love the different insights that the participants bring into the course. And I learn something new myself with each presentation. So I do hope you'll join me for the Mastering Perimenopause and Menopause with Pilates course. It's all online if you just wanted to do the online component, and anything that we do in the tutorial will be uploaded back into the course. One thing that I could not do without in my life, without my clients, I would not survive. And if you asked me what keeps my spark alive, I would say constantly learning. I'm always learning new things. I'm always interested to find out something new, something more that I can then share back to the people in my world. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to Art of Pilates. I'm your host, Louise Taube, principal trainer as recognised with the PAA, studio owner and Pilates teacher. To stay connected, please subscribe to my mailing list via my website, taubepilates.com. And if you've loved this show, please give me a review. I'd love a Facebook review or a Google review. It really helps to support me and my business and this podcast. See you next time, and keep moving with intention.